All right. So we don't always know why. We don't always know why God has done something. So I'll tell a story about that. Hopefully I can get through it. So we don't always know why God is doing something. So I had a friend who came to ALCF. She was African. She came to America, and so in the different countries they see America in the movies, they see America on TV, and she so people when they come to America, it's something they want to see or something they want to do. And she said when she came to America, she wanted to eat a burrito. That was her big goal, was to eat a burrito. So we'll call her the Burrito Girl. So the Burrito Girl, so this is a story about the Burrito Girl. So I was talking to her last week, and she was telling me how she doubts God. She doesn't always believe that God exists. And we talked about testimony. She doesn't have a testimony. She said it needs to be rational for her. It needs to be rational. She needs to have logic. It needs to make sense. It needs to make logic, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. She said, but she doesn't just see how it's fair or how things, and she really sometimes has trouble with God. And then she said, well, the reason she has trouble with God is because she doesn't see how it's fair. So she was born with, have you heard of sickle cell anemia? Mm-hmm. So she was born with sickle cell anemia, severe case of sickle cell anemia. So sickle cell anemia is, if you do certain things, it's a chronic disease that you're born with, and so she would just be in excruciating pain, like all the time. So she runs, exercises too much, she's in pain, and from a child, she's just in excruciating pain and has to take medicine. And so to the point where she couldn't go to school. She couldn't go to school because she would be in pain and have to leave, and so she had to be homeschooled. And she couldn't see how God would allow something like that. And so but then she said she still was a Christian, and then she said, well, I'm going to just give my life to God, and decide that I'll be a nun. But then she went to try to be a nun, and because of her disease, they wouldn't allow her to be a nun.
Really?
Because she's constantly hospitalized.
Wow.
She has to be paralyzed, and it's just she wasn't fit to be a nun. Yeah. So she's just thinking, okay, well, how can this, a God just let something like this happen? And I told her, well, I just did a series on when God doesn't heal. And she's like, well, I don't want to be healed. Why do I have this disease in the first place? Why do I have this effing disease in the first place? I don't want to be healed. And she said now she just got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So she has another chronic disease on top of it. And so she's having the trouble reconciling God and all of this, and just seeing it. Where is God in all of this, and how is God present? And she said, but every now and then she does have a glimpse that even though she's still suffering, that maybe God is with her going through it. So she feels that maybe God is with her as she's going through it. And she says she sometimes thinks of the story with the footprints in the sand, where the guy got to heaven and said, God, how come you weren't with me? And he said, well, look at your life. And he says, on the sand, he says, see that the extra, when you're walking on the sand, your footprints, the extra set of footprints there, that's me. I was walking with you. And he said, well, God, why is there only 2 footprints there? And he said, that's where I was carrying you, my son. Mm-hmm. So says she does think of that sometimes, and that God is with her, and then maybe, God has been with her, and she sometimes feels God's with her, and then maybe that's what it is. And I said, okay. And she said, and then we're gonna get off the phone nearly. She says, oh, I don't know if I mentioned to you that I got married recently. Mm. And I said, you got married? But then I remembered. So she told me the story about her fiance, boyfriend, how they met. She was dating him, online dating, and they were communicated for a while, and then they were going to meet. And the day they were going to meet, she had an episode, sickle cell, and she was in excruciating pain, and so she just couldn't go, and she couldn't. So she didn't show up, didn't tell him didn't cancel on him or anything. She just didn't tell him, and so then eventually they connected again, and they were going to try it again 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, and so they were going to meet, and so they set up a time to meet, and she had a horrible episode that time and ended up in the hospital. So didn't meet with him again. So now she's in the hospital, and so she said she didn't even bother, reaching out to him because she figured, oh, it's just too much going on. But then she said she was there overnight, and it was just infomercials on TV. She was bored, so she texted him, and she told him, oh, well, I had an episode. I'm in the hospital. And she told him where she was and everything, and he was, an hour and a half away. And she said next thing she knew, he came there.
Wow.
He came there. So this is their first time meeting. So he came there, and he stayed there with her all night. So he stayed with her all night in the hospital. And then she was going to have to stay another day. And so she says he called his work, told him he couldn't make it to work.
Wow.
And he stayed with her another day. So he stayed with her until she got out of work. Until she got out of the hospital. Mm. And I was like, wow, okay. And then she ended up moving, and then he moved with her to help her. So they'd known each other for a few months, and then next thing I know, and so they ended up getting married. Mm. And I thought about it. I said, wow. I said, well, I guess, usually when I said, that was pretty quick. But, you want to usually wait so you can find out about the person. I said, but I guess you found out about this guy pretty quick if he's willing to do all that. Yeah. He's willing to, commit to taking care of you for the rest of your life. And it was just so you found out, in a few months, what it would normally take years to find out about somebody's character. Mm-hmm. It's like, so that is and you wouldn't have been able to find that out if you didn't have, your disease. That's true. You may have ended up with someone else. So you were able, there's no question about his love for you now, because of the situation you're in. You don't have to question his love for you, and so you never know, and so so I told her she may not have, so his love is undeniable, and so I told her you may not have a testimony, but you are a testimony, that God can use anything, not necessarily God does everything, but that he can use anything to benefit you. All right, so let's walk in the way, let's seek the truth and live the life.
Mm-hmm. And did the girl get her burrito?
She got a burrito.
Wait, did she get it from San Diego, though?